Knowingness for me, that's like pretty much what I've called it my whole life. I've had some struggles and some tough times, but I feel really lucky to say that I've always had this knowingness that everything was going to work out and everything was going to be okay.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's really helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we begin the podcast today, feel your angels surround you and sing to you. You are a miracle. Your life is a miracle. The good that you choose to do today is a miracle received by other souls. And just because you're you, God, Universe, Source sends you big and small miracles this day and every day. Right now, invite your angels to guide you. Ask God, Universe, Source for what your heart wants. See it as if you're in the future and what you want is already yours now. And so it is. I love you and I'm so grateful you're here that I have some freebies for you. I worked with the angels to create 31 meditations that are going to make you a magnet for miracles. Get them free at theangelmedium.com. Want to be my angel? Leave this podcast 5 stars or a 5-star positive review, and I'll enter you into a drawing to win a free reading with me. Use the form at theangelmedium.com/contact to send me your contact info so I know who to call when you win. Use that same contact form to submit your angel stories, what you're struggling with, or a question, which I'll answer on this podcast or Instagram at Angel Podcast. That's theangelmedium.com/contact. Thank you for being my angel. And remember, angels and miracles are your birthright, and they're activated when you believe. So ask, believe, and receive your miracles. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. And friends, we have a treat for you today. We have Daryl Sabara from the Workin on It podcast. He's also a Blockbuster actor. He has been in everything from the Polar Express to all of the Spy Kids movies. He was Junie, which we used to have on DVD, right, Elle?
Wow.
And we also have my daughter Elle with us today. But Daryl, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Julie. Thanks, Elle. Thanks for thinking of me and having me on the podcast.
Yes, there's so much for us to dive into today. One thing that we haven't talked about in over 550 episodes of the show is intuition and relationships. So I remember being about 24, 25 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with my aunt and uncle, and I just adore their relationship. They have the best, sweetest relationship. And I was dating at the time, and I was like, but how do you know? Like, how do you know that that person that you met is the right one? And they would say the most frustrating thing, which was when you know, you know. And you don't get that until it happens. And Elle's dad, my husband, he's the sweetest man in the entire world. I am a big time, I would say, feminist or women's empowerment person. And you are too. You totally back you call her your angel of a wife, Meghan
Yeah,
Trainor.
yeah.
Um, but it seems like you and Meghan really had that intuitive hit about one another right when you met. Can you start off telling us about that?
Yeah, I'm actually I don't know if you know this story, but we've told it a couple times. Before our first date, we actually met before that. We met at a random party 2 years before our first date. I had a roommate at the time. I didn't like to go out very much, but I was kind of down in the dumps that night. And he said, "Hey, we're going to a party." And he was an actor as well. And he just knew where all the parties were. So it was a songwriter's party. And we just showed up because That's what we would do, just show up randomly and crash this party. And I wasn't very social back then, so I kind of would just go off and do my own thing. I was off, like it was in the Hollywood Hills, so I was just looking at the view, and this girl tapped me on the shoulder, and I remember this beautiful blonde girl with like these greenish bluish eyes, and she said to me like, "Hey, are you Spy Kids? Because if you're Spy Kids, like I'd love to just hang out with you." And back then, usually if I got asked if I was Spy Kids, I would say yeah, and then kind of move away, or say no and move away. But there's something about this girl that was so special that I was like, yes, I'm absolutely Spy Kids. My name's Daryl. And we just hung out for a little while at that party. And then she had friends there, and she went to her friends, and the whole rest of the night I would just hear, "Yo, Spy Kids." And I would point and I'd go, "Megan." And then I left the party and she went off with her friends. And before our first date, we got set up by a mutual friend of ours named Chloe. And before our first date, she was we were texting each other, trying to get to know each other. And she said, "You probably don't remember me, but we actually met at a party before." And I was like, "Wow, you're that girl from the songwriter party. That was you." And then our first date, she walked in the door, and like your grandparents, you said,
Aunt and uncle. Yeah.
your aunt and uncle. When you know, you know.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. But also right before then too, I was just like the period I was in my life, I became really aware of like abundance, and that I was lacking abundance. I was lacking acceptance. And so right before I met Megan for that first date, I went, do you know what a float lab is? Or like
No.
a sensory deprivation?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. They make it look scary in Stranger Things.
You
But
kind of like float in water. So there's like a lot of salt, so much salt that you just float in the water, but it's supposed to be very, very healing.
yes. And this one, they have like newer ones now where there are like light therapy with it. This one that I went to was pitch black. So the
Okay.
whole goal of it is to just be really in tune with all of your senses, because it feels like you're just floating in space. It was like a 2-hour treatment. I went and I basically had a panic attack. But in the midst of my panic attack, to calm myself down, I just started speaking out loud because that calmed me down. What I didn't realize is that I was pretty much like manifesting, I think.
Yeah.
And I just was really open and honest with myself. And I was like in a period of dating, and I was single for a while. And something just happened where I was just truly honest with myself. And I was saying, I think I'm ready to meet that someone. I'm ready to meet someone who's smarter than me and more talented, and gonna make me a better person. And I'm ready to meet that person. And then like 2 weeks later, I went on my first date with Megan. So,
Wow.
and we consider our first date our anniversary, because both of us just knew that
Mhm.
we were the person for each other.
Join me for these upcoming events. We're hosting the Angel Reiki Mediumship School live in person again this fall and spring. Event dates are up at theangelmedium.com/events. Space is limited. Reserve your spot today. And as a bonus, I'm giving you access to our 8-week online Angel Reiki Mediumship School so that you can get started as soon as you register. Don't want to come in person? That's okay. You can still earn your certifications in mediumship, angel messages, and energy healing in our 8-week online program with a new online class and Zoom calls starting on the first of each month. Did you know one Wednesday evening of each month, I host a free group prayer event open to all. And right afterwards, I teach you a new tool to work with your angels or loved ones in heaven. Sign up today free at theangelmedium.com/events, and we'll send you the Zoom link to participate. You'll also find details on our upcoming spiritual retreat, October 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2024 at theangelmedium.com/events. So excited to work with you. Now, back to the show. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. And I think it's just so powerful because you had said that growing up with a single mom and your dad not being around, that it was hard to imagine being a dad or a husband because you just hadn't seen it role modeled to yourself. But that as soon as you got together with her, I read somewhere that you said you had a vision and that it all just flashed before your eyes.
Yeah, I never saw myself being a dad. I never saw myself being married. But when we went on that first date, I just knew that this was the person that I was supposed to be with. And I didn't see it really clearly of like me being a dad or a husband, but there was like this calmness that
Yeah.
just washed over me of like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And all of those things that I couldn't see before, I think might happen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, like a knowingness.
Yes, yes. And the knowingness, that's so interesting that you say that. Knowingness for me, that's like pretty much what I've called it my whole life. I've had some struggles and some tough times, but I feel really lucky to say that I've always had this knowingness that everything was going to work out and everything
Yeah,
was going to be okay.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's really helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention that because the vision part or the knowingness part, those are both part of spiritual gifts. So I think that intuition can be broken down, not just into like the four clairs, they call it like clear seeing, clear hearing, clear knowing, clear feeling. There's so many of them, but you just have this almost physical body response to something and you just know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I wanted to ask, do you believe in angels and do you believe that we're being guided?
I think I do. I think I do. Yeah. I'm 32 and I definitely like believe in a higher power. And I definitely think that my wife is an angel because she's just the best person ever.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I do. I think I do.
Amazing. And do you have any angel stories that you can share of us? Just like where you know that you're being led or getting signs from loved ones on the other side?
I do. I did my grandmother passed when I was how old was I? 21. I think I just no, I just turned 22. I like auditioned for this TV show that I'd never been a series regular on a TV show. And I was auditioning for this show and a lot of my jobs that I've gotten, there's like an excruciating waiting period where I go out and then I wait for like 6 weeks. So I was in this excruciating waiting period and to know if I got the show or not. And in during that waiting period, my I talked to my grandmother for the last time. I was in Los Angeles and she was in Texas, and I got the phone call that that would be my last phone call with her. And she just told me that everything was going to work out and to just like keep believing in myself and to just have fun. And so during like, especially for an actor, during those waiting periods, you're kind of like in your head and you're freaking out. And after that phone call, I really kind of just like let go of everything. And I was really grateful that I got to talk to her one last time and say goodbye. But it was that same day that she said that I got the phone call that I got that job. And then
Wow.
I think another like I don't know if this is considered an angel story, but I had a surrogate grandfather that I grew up with. His name was Papa. I called him Papa. His real name is Al. He had Alzheimer's. When I was 13 is when it like really started to hit. And I'd go over to my aunt's house and she was taking care of him. And I'd go over every Sunday. And when I would get to the house, he would kind of look and not really know who I was, but I'd bring my guitar and he loved that I played the guitar. So every time I started playing guitar, he'd be like, "Oh, hey Daryl, like there you are." Oh, and my wow, that was him.
I love it. It fell at the perfect time.
But like the last time I saw him before he went to the hospital, he went outside and he called me outside and it seemed like he was super young. Like all of a sudden he was just so young and he was smoking this cigar and he goes, "Hey, Daryl, you smoked these yet?" And I was like, no, Papa, I'm 13. And he was like, oh, right, right. Well, you will, maybe. And then he was like, you got a girlfriend yet? And I was like, no, Papa, I'm 13. He was like, oh, right, right, right. Well, you will. And it was just like he was asking me all these like young, hip questions. And he was so lively. And so like I always thought that that was like kind of him just trying to connect with me one last time before he passed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That an angel story?
Absolutely it is, and there's a couple of people on Instagram and TikTok, Nurse Hadley and Nurse Julie, and
Hmm.
they're both hospice nurses, and they're huge because they tell these stories about how it doesn't just happen with a couple of people, it happens with the majority of people when they're at the end of life, that they'll talk about seeing loved ones who are on the other side. There's just so much that you can tell the veil is kind of thinner at that time, that they're kind of bridging both worlds. They're a little bit on the other side, they're a little bit here. And I believe that when our loved ones go to the other side, they become a part of our spirit team if we would have wanted that. And they help us. They can almost like fast forward the tape on our entire lives. They can see what's coming up. They can make sure that, Megan and Daryl are at the perfect time at this party. They can make sure. Somebody was in a movie with Chloe, like right before, I think. Is that how you guys became friends? And then you and Megan were introduced by Chloe?
I did a play in New York with Chloe, and we
Yeah,
became really close friends. We lived in New York together and did the play. And then when we both moved back to Los Angeles, we would just hang out all the time. And
perfect.
she's like my little sister. And so we'd hang out randomly one day. She just said, like, hey, would you ever want to go? She was dating someone at the time. And then she said, hey, would you ever want to go on a double date with Meghan Trainor? I was like, of course I would. Why are you asking me that question? Like, of course I would. But what's crazy is that when we met at that party, she like all about that bass, she hadn't even written yet. It hadn't come out yet. She was just a songwriter out in Los Angeles. So I didn't know, like when I first heard all about that bass, I kind of feel like it's one of those songs that like you know where you were when you first heard that song.
For
I
sure.
didn't hear that song and go like, oh, that's the girl from the party, or see the video and go, that's the girl from the party. But then when she texted me like, hey, I'm that girl from the party, everything just clicked.
Amazing. But
Yeah.
there's all those things that have to come together in our lives, right? And you said it earlier, but I think it's the best thing. Like your entire life has been an angel story.
Yeah, well, especially I'm like a big everything happens for a reason type person. And especially like acting so young and kind of putting myself out there at such a young age. The hardest part about a lot of industries, I would say, is rejection. And I never really looked at it as rejection. And I think that helped me stick with it and keep going with it because it can really bring you down and you can really see it as like people don't like you or you're not good enough. But for me, I'm always glass half full and just I've just always told myself like, well, this wasn't the right project and this one wasn't meant for me. And then every role that I have gotten, I immediately think back on projects that I wanted and parts that I wanted, going like, man, if I had gotten that, I would have never
Yeah.
gotten here. Randomly, like I did a movie called Keeping Up with the Steins when I was 12. And it was an independent movie. So it took a little while for it to like find people to put it out in theaters. But a year and a half later, we shot for the poster. We shot pictures for the poster. And the guy who was shooting the pictures for the poster ended up writing a movie called April Showers. And it was the first time I ever got a phone call that was like a straight offer where like I didn't have to audition for a role.
Wow.
And so I got this. Wow, this is actually a great angel story. This movie, April Showers, was based on Columbine. The writer director, Andrew, was a survivor, a Columbine survivor. Right before I got this offer to be a part of this Columbine movie, I was in public high school and there was a charity like at the high school of this event called She Said Yes. And it was all about this girl named Rachel Scott. and how she was killed during Columbine. So this like event happened at my school about Rachel Scott. And then I get this offer for this movie that's about Columbine. And I was like, that's odd. Then when I met Andrew, he told me that his girlfriend was Rachel Scott.
Wow.
And then he goes, I cast you because I was the photographer of this poster shoot that you did. And you were so nice that even though you were 13, I kept your name in my head and eventually like I wanted to put you in a film. So it's just like it's all connected in some strange way. And yeah.
Awesome. Yes. Perfect angel story.
Yeah.
A lot of people say there's synchronicities, like, oh, that's just a synchronicity. I don't believe it is. I believe there's just this wild web. We're having Jennifer Love Hewitt on the show, and she's got this tattoo that I just love that says, the universe will always provide. And I thought, man, it's so true. And in so many different facets and ways. One of the things that you talk about on the podcast and openly is just meditation, that you meditate. What is your favorite meditation? How did you get into it? And does it play a role, do you think, in your mental health?
100%. My meditation of choice, and this was another just like the universe provided for me around when I was around 13, pretty much your age, Elle. I grew up like my background is Jewish. I'm technically Jewish because my mom and my grandmother were Jewish and I was bar mitzvahed, but I grew up around a lot of Christians and Catholics. So I grew up going to church a lot with them. And my personal like experience with religion is like, I think whatever works for you is the best. But I noticed around like 12, 13 that sometimes like at the Christian church, they were like, we are the best and we're better than everyone. And then this is my own interpretation. And
Yeah.
then at the Catholic church, they were like, we are the best and we're better than everyone. And then when I was learning for my bar mitzvah, it was like, we're the chosen people. And I was like, man, I wish everyone would talk to each other because they're all pretty much saying the same thing. So around that time, I was like, I feel very spiritual. I don't know if it's religious, but I definitely feel spiritual and started to look into meditation. One meditation that I looked into, even back when I was like 14, was transcendental meditation. At the time, because I was 14 in 2006. At the time, transcendental meditation is a meditation where you sit for 20 minutes a day, twice a day, and you have a mantra. You're given a mantra. There's like an initiation, a learning experience with someone who teaches transcendental meditation, and they give you your mantra. At the time, it was very expensive to get a mantra. And I was a little bit confused. I was like, well, if meditation is for everyone, why does this meditation cost money? And like something like kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. But I
Mhm.
was always interested in it because that meditation to me, you could do anywhere. So I looked into other meditations. I was introduced to mindfulness meditation. And then shortly after that, the Headspace app came out and I started using that. And that was really helpful. And then this play I did in New York was also about Columbine. Very strange.
Wow.
And the character that I played in that play was loosely based off of the brother of Rachel Scott. So anyway, it was a very dark play. And I went to rehearsals and I was having a really tough time sleeping because it was just a lot of darkness around that.
Yeah.
One of the actors in the play, I overheard talking to the playwright about meditation. And so I came to work the next day and his name was Michael O'Keefe. And I said, hey, Michael, I overheard you talking about meditation. Do you think you could point me in the right direction? And the playwright overheard me and goes, you need to learn transcendental meditation. It's the best meditation. And then Michael said, it is great, but maybe start somewhere else.
Mhm.
So again, like transcendental meditation, like came in and then was kind of pushed aside. So I learned basic meditation, basic mindfulness, the Headspace app. And then cut to a couple years later after I met Meghan, we had a trainer who's coming over to our house to help us get fit for our wedding. We were trying to get in wedding shape. And one day our trainer came over, his name's Hunter, and he was always a super happy, lovely guy. But this one day in particular, he seemed like he was like walking on sunshine. He just like floated in to our session. And there was this lightness about him extra. And so I always would walk him back to his car after our sessions. And I walked him back to the car and I said, "Hey man, you seem like really happy. What's going on? Like what's happening?" And he goes, "Oh, dude, I just learned transcendental meditation and it's the best. And I can, if you're interested, like I can help you like get in touch with someone who can teach you." And he did, and I learned it. And my life is basically, I consider my life pre-TM and my life post-TM. And so I know there's a very long, convoluted story, but
No.
transcendental meditation is my meditation of choice. It's been really helpful for me to just kind of go back to zero. I start my mornings with it, and
Mhm.
then I really try to meditate twice a day. Sometimes with the kids, it gets a little tough
Sure.
to get that second 20 minutes in. But it's like the best afternoon cup of coffee I could ever have. Like I just go, I sit as quiet as it can be. And sometimes it's not quiet, and that's okay too. And yeah, that's meditation is huge for my mental health.
Speaking of signs, we just had Dr. Tony Nader, who runs the TM organization, on the podcast yesterday.
No way. I just got an
Yeah.
email about his new book.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. It's fascinating. Everything is consciousness. And it was interesting because I used to work in nonprofits for universities, like helping fundraise for the university. And when my dad passed, we weren't talking at the time. He was kind of a serial cheater, and I would always catch him cheating when I was young. And when he passed, I started to hear every single time I would brush Elle's hair, "She needs a hairbrush like I used. She needs a hairbrush like I used." And I was like, that's not me. Like, that's not something that I would say. Plus, writing and scripts, there's just a certain way that you talk to yourself versus the
Yeah.
way that you talk to others.
Yeah.
It's like, I have no idea what this voice is talking about because the hairbrush that I'm using is the only brush I've ever used. And fast forward a month, that's happening all month long. I think I'm going crazy and I'm at work, and my sister keeps calling and she's like, "Dad's passed." And I get this vision out of my third eye of my dad brushing my hair before school like he always would, with a hairbrush I hadn't thought about in decades. It was this wooden handlebar with these boars like bristles. And it just clicked like, oh my God, my dad's been trying to get a hold of me all month long. And I really didn't know how I was going to tell my husband this because we're spiritual, but we're not religious. And yet we're both kind of grown up in Christian churches. And this is not something that you touch at all. Most of the times, Christians are like, this is of the devil.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's my dad. Like, my dad is on the other side and he's trying to communicate. So I prayed and I was like, okay, guys, how am I supposed to address this with my husband? And they said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about making him more spiritual. When it's supposed to happen, we'll bring him to it. So he loves documentaries. I love watching them with him.
Yes.
And he watched one on the Beatles where they really got into TM and like their time in India. So he goes, I think for Christmas, I want to try transcendental meditation. I was like, oh my God, the angels did it. Like they brought him to this himself. But he raves about transcendental meditation. And he says the same thing. It's hard to get in twice a day, but he feels so much different and so much less anxiety when he makes sure to get that 20 minutes in every morning.
For me, it's just kind of like a time for me to remember who I am, because
Yeah.
I've definitely felt lost at times, and growing up, also like acting and being different characters and stuff like that. I would draw from different people in my life and different aspects of myself, and that time really lets me just kind of sink in to
Mhm.
remembering like, oh yeah, like this is who I am and this is who I want to be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Is
Yeah.
that hard? Like you said that when you were working in the play in New York and it was kind of dark, is it hard to separate who you are as an actor from the energy that you have to put into the role?
It was in the beginning, but kind of like with everything, like the more practice I got, the easier it became. And also theater is so thrilling because as opposed to movies and television where you get multiple takes, theater is live. And New York theater especially was like that was like a goal of mine to be on stage in New York. And I kind of consider it like the peak of my career because it was just such a exciting scary experience that I got through and then had a lot of fun with. So yeah, in the beginning it was tough, but then once I asked for help, that's another like huge thing that Megan and I and her older brother Ryan, especially on our podcast, we like preach just asking for help. So when I was having trouble sleeping and having trouble distancing myself from the character and the life of the play, once I asked for help, I felt so much better.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true because if you don't ask for help, nobody can get inside your head. They don't know what it is that you need. But as soon as you ask for it, people can be there for you.
And even just saying it out loud, sometimes when I need help, like I just talk out loud to
Yeah.
myself, which again, like back in that float lab, when I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that you guys have to legally record this so you can like know that like, that I'm okay, but I think I'm okay. And I just started talking to myself and instantly just like calm down. So even like looking in a mirror and asking yourself for help sometimes is helpful for me as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that tip. I read in Megan's book, Dear Future Mama, you said something that was just so powerfully healing. You said, whatever kind of dad you had or didn't, you get to decide the kind of father you want to be. You get to decide to break generational curses and change your family tree, or pass down the best parts of your own dad to your children. I thought that was just so healing and touching. And I wonder, how has being a dad healed your own heart?
Oh, I'm gonna try not to cry. It's happening. Like it's still happening. And I think it won't ever stop happening. But being a dad, how's it healed my own heart? It's just the greatest, most, um, I, I sound so cliche. It's just the most amazing feeling in the world. I have two boys, Riley, who's 3.5, and Barry, who just turned 1. It's so crazy to see like bits and pieces of me in them and then get to see who they're becoming. They also help me remember who I am because I had plenty of childhood trauma and I didn't usually like to go back and think about that. And they just show me what it's like to have fun and be innocent and be silly. I would say like the best part about being a dad was like the realization of like, oh man, like these boys love it when I'm silly. And I think I'm the silliest person I know. And but before, whenever I was silly, I would get embarrassed. And now it's like this like badge of honor that I have
Awesome.
to like just be the silliest dude in the room. And Riley especially is now becoming like the class clown. He is just like the goofiest goober and makes everyone smile and laugh. And so does Barry too. Barry's just more, he's not talking yet. So most of it is with his looks. Like he's crawling super fast. He's gonna walk any day now, but he'll like crawl to a place where he knows he's not supposed to go. He'll get there and just sit and wait for you. And he's just staring
Oh.
at you, just looking at you like I wasn't supposed to go here, right? And but yeah, so it's the best.
I
I'm
just
so
saw a scientist talk about this the other day. They said that our brains are actually wired for specific things from mom and specific things from dad. That
oh,
when mom comes in and really gives you that big hug, it gives the child, I don't know if it's oxytocin.
oxytocin. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah.
And then it gives it to the mom too,
Yep.
but it's a different thing for the dad. When the dad comes in and plays with the child gets the oxytocin and so does dad.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like remembering to play. Like we forget when we get older because we get so bogged down with stuff that like everything's serious and important. And then you forget to just like take a second to play.
Yeah.
And also like imagination is huge, especially in a 3-year-old. It is so much fun watching Riley's imagination just run wild, and he keeps making up these like wild stories, or his toy car. He loves cars and anything, planes, trains, all of it. And he's like, the train's going to the station, and he just gets crazy with it.
Is that where To the Moon video comes in? We've been listening to Timeless,
uh
Megan's new album all summer. And I have to say, I know people say this sometimes, but this is true for Megan's album. Like sometimes you get one song that you really like or two songs. Oh my God, like we love To the Moon, Been Like This, Whoops, I Want to Thank Me, which is amazing.
yeah,
Rollin', I Get It, Hate It Here, Bestie. I mean, like they're
I
just
call it
so
it's a
amazing.
no skip album. There's no
Yes.
skips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. She is gonna be so stoked to hear that. And I told her that you guys are coming to the show on October 5th, and
Yay.
it's gonna be
Yay.
so fun. To the Moon. Yes, To the Moon was because of Riley's love for rocket ships. He loves rocket ships. He loves space. His room is decorated in space and rocket ships. And he had this bath mat on his bathroom floor that where we would dry him after his bath that said To the Moon on it. And she was
Oh,
just like drying him after his bath one day while she was writing the album, and she looked at To the Moon and she was like, Riley, I'm gonna write you a song called To the Moon. And that's how it started.
wow, and for those who haven't, like, seen it yet, you should go check out the video on YouTube because it's just such a fun video in it. Daryl, you're in it, Riley's in it,
Yeah.
and she makes mention of a spy in there. I caught that. Like, how do you know if he's a spy? So I didn't know if that was, like, a nod to Spy Kids.
Yeah,
Uh,
we just kind of wanted to have fun with it, and
yeah.
bring the Spy Kids fans in as well, because there are a lot of people who know that we're together, but still like on social media and stuff, we'll post a TikTok or something together, and people will say, I had no idea you guys were married or even together. So
I
this
don't
was
know how people couldn't. You guys are like a reality show that doesn't have a TV show yet. Like that's all that's needed. The brothers that live with you guys, the podcast. I love Megan's personality. I love everything about who she is, and you guys are all just the perfect. You need a TV show.
maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe one day. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but it could be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you if they want to find you and Megan? And Megan is going on tour. The Timeless tour is starting. It's going to go, I think, all across the US, right?
All across the US. Timeless Stores starts September 1st. You can find me on all the socials, just my name, Daryl Sabara. I'm a co-host on the Working on It pod. And I think that's just called at Working on It pod on all socials. And it's available anywhere where you can listen to podcasts, and our videos are on YouTube. And then Megan, everyone knows Megan. You can find her anywhere.
Daryl, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here, to be on the show, and just for everything that you do. I really spent a lot of time reading Dear Future Mama, and for those who haven't read Megan's book, there's just a lack. There's it's so easy to criticize our relationships or just to criticize this and that. The way that you two lift one another up and empower one another, I think is just very healing for the world to see how to be in a healthy relationship, how to love one another and really support one another. So thank you for the person that you are and for how you're helping the world.
Thanks. Oh, well, we just try to be the best people that we can be every day, and we both feel really lucky that we found each other, and really it's just we're just honest with each other, and she's the person who is still helping me become the best version of myself. And I think like our relationship is just based on honesty and communication. And so we just keep those gates wide open at all times.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You, Julie.
I'd love to work with you if it resonates. Book a reading to get messages from your angels right away. or join my membership or my Angel Reiki Mediumship School. What's the difference? The Angel Reiki Mediumship School certifies you in mediumship, angel messages, and energy healing all at once. Some join simply to develop all of their unique spiritual gifts to the max, and others want to start their own spiritual business. Both are perfect. You can take the Angel Reiki Mediumship School online with Zoom meetings or in person in Oak Brook, Illinois, in November or April. Bonus, when you register for the in-person Angel Reiki Mediumship School today, you also get the 8-week online program free with Zoom meetings included, so you can literally start today. How is that different from my membership? My membership gives you everything you need to care for and nourish your soul. The fact is, our world neglects the soul. Most people only attend to their own soul when they have a big life crisis. But your soul is not a problem to be solved. Your soul is starving to be seen, heard, nourished, and cared for. Your soul is speaking to you, and it wants you to hear it. That's what my membership does. It nourishes your soul. It shows you there is an entire universe living within you, how you can access your own angels, messages, and live a life of wonder, magic, enchantment, and miracles. At your request, we've changed the membership so that you can join anytime, any month. You can purchase readings, the school, my membership, all over at theangelmedium.com. As we close today, ask your angels to be with you and allow these messages to speak to your heart. Your angels say you are connected to the universe, and the universe is connected to you. All you ever need is within you right now at this very moment. Stay true to yourself. Don't betray yourself by going against the intuitive feelings you get. Trust your own inner wisdom. Why? The world needs you. The world needs you to dream big and for you to discover what's possible for yourself. Step into the energy of all that you are. Smile, laugh, and allow your heart to be healed. Ask your angels to bring you big, big miracles, prosperity, and to open big doors. Believe in miracles. You have a big purpose, and friends, inspiration is everywhere. Everywhere you look, there are people in need of help, love, and support. Find a way to be of service. Start right now by asking yourself, what good shall I do this day? Love is who you are. Joy is your nature. Remember, God only ever has 3 answers to your prayers. Yes, not yet, or I have something so much better in mind you can't possibly believe it. Nothing is impossible, and nothing can stop your determined soul from succeeding. Now go about your day and expect the most wonderful things to happen.